You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to Serious Growth Podcast, where the truth is told. For some of you viewers, you'll notice that I'm not in a studio today. I'm actually at my office, at my studio gym. And what we're doing is because of what's going on in the world with coronavirus. So in case you noticed that. On today's show, we have a gentleman named Tom Fallon. Tom, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know, I've known you actually for a long time. At the top of the show, we talked. I've known you for quite a while now. I can't even tell you how many years, and today's the first time I've actually seen who you are. It's funny how you build a relationship with people sometimes, and it's been kind of an interesting sort of a relationship that we've had over the years.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm looking at your bio now. The first thing that stands out is Boxing Coach of the Year. Why don't you tell me a little bit how I see in the background there, it looks like you have a ring and the whole bit in your now, is that like a home gym type thing, or are you at a gym?
No, I have a location here in Billerica, Massachusetts. It's
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when did you start your say again?
I train fighters, people who compete mostly.
Okay. So when did you get into the career or boxing? How old were you? How did this all begin for you?
So when I was my brother was a professional fighter. So I went to the gym with him when I was younger, like 10 or 9 or something. Went to the gym.
Yeah.
And then he went into the Marines, and some other things happened between me and that time. But my brother went to the Marines. When he got out of the Marines, I was in high school. He asked me if I'd go to the gym with him, and that's where my boxing started.
Okay, so when you say gym, obviously that's boxing. Did you were you an athlete before that in school, or is boxing your first?
I played football and I played baseball. The Babe Ruth stuff. In high school, I only played freshman football.
Okay.
But I always consider I saw Pumping Iron as a kid and said, that's what I want to do. I'm gifted.
So why did you get into a sport that, for me, I mean, I did boxing one time in PE class, and the first time I took one to the jaw, I said, "Oh, hell no, I'm going to go play football." So what is it that got you into boxing?
Okay, so my brother was pretty popular, I used to sign autographs for my brother for like people in England and stuff. They had no idea that he wasn't signing it, but he didn't feel like signing anything. So he used to sign stuff. And I just said to myself one day, I think I can do that. And I just had a desire in my heart to be better than my brother.
Oh, that's strong motivation.
Yeah, it was I was very motivated because I wanted people to talk about me. I wanted to get, a stack of newspapers written about my boxing ability.
So your brother was a boxer then as well?
Yeah, my brother was a professional fighter when I was younger.
Okay.
And through my career too, but I mean, he's no longer.
Now, when you started your boxing career, were you 17? How old were you?
No, I almost finished it when I was 17. I think
really?
Started around 15. 15.
Yeah.
Boxed to like 18 and a half. That was about it. Won the gloves a couple times. And just my brother had a main event. My brother won this main event fight that he had. And I helped him train for that, with sparring and all that. And then after the fight, we just took 2 weeks off and just never went back.
I'll be darned.
I don't know why we never went back, but we just never went back. I've fought since then, to be honest with you. I've won another title. 2 years ago, I won a title in Arizona. 2
years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
And how old did you say you were?
I'm 53 right now. So I was probably 50, 51. There's a whole arena of older dudes fighting.
Really?
Yeah. I trained.
Is there any being that age, is there any extra
safety?
Well, is it more dangerous fighting at the age of 51 rather than fighting when you're 20 or 17?
you know, they give you bigger gloves. So they can try to do it. I don't want to get hit with a big glove or a little glove, but I don't think there's any benefit to waiting till you're 45, 50 years old to box. No.
So did you just do it because you had a wild hair, or wanted to prove something to yourself?
I got back into boxing because I made a big mistake in taking my son to see the fights, the Golden Gloves. I went once with one of my bosses, but then I took my whole family to see the Gloves up here in Lowell, Massachusetts. Mike Tyson fought there. Mickey Ward fought there. A bunch of people fought out there. So I took my family to see it. And my boy kept asking me, Dad, can I box? Can I box? Dad, can I box? And I just finally said, yeah, ask your mom. Because my wife, I knew she'd say no. And then, because my wife, I didn't get the box because of my wife. So she said, she looked at me and says, sure, if your dad trains you.
No kidding. What a surprise.
Yeah, I was like, I'm still surprised. 7 years later, I'm still training my son. So
nice.
Yeah. So it's all because of my wife.
It's all her fault.
It's all her fault.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with passing the buck. What the hell? So how old is your son?
My boy's 17.
17, and you're still training him?
18 in June.
Has he won any titles yet?
You had to ask me. He's got 4, right? He's got 4. I only got 3. He's 5?
Wow.
My wife's giving me the 5 over there. So I think he's got 4. He might have 5, but I only got 3. So.
Okay, so when I was watching my kids play, when they did something really great, I'd always say that's my boy. But when when it wasn't great, it's my wife's kid. Sounds like it's your wife's kid. She got 5 titles. You got 3.
Yeah, I only got 3, man.
Maybe he should be training. Maybe he should be training you.
Oh, good one. Good one.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm kind of joking.
I can learn from him.
Okay, you always can. We can always learn. That's the beauty of all this. Hey,
I've learned
seriously.
so much from you. I've learned so much from you since.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was going to ask you about weightlifting. Did you ever by the way, I didn't know your wife was there. I'm sorry that I used some curse words there. I'm not very disciplined sometimes. My fault.
It's okay. Well, thank you for apologizing. I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah. The weightlifting. Now, did you, while you were doing your weightlifting, did you incorporate, while you were doing your boxing, did you incorporate weightlifting?
I have, yes. Hey, I got to tell you the story. I've known you for a long time, right? Maybe 20, 25 years. I know you, serious growth, big beyond belief, all these things. I was in a bodybuilding competition once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was in my backyard. It was against my brother. My mother was the judge, and I won.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Hey, man, I still got the trophy, so I don't care. Man.
Well, yeah, that's all. Hey, I get it. A win is a win.
A win's a win, right?
Yeah, that's right. But, no, it's okay. That's all right.
I do implement some weightlifting into there is some weightlifting or body movement type of dips and pull-ups and stuff that we do here at the gym.
Okay, but when you were training, when you were boxing, did you implement weight training?
Nothing.
And why is that? Is that because not enough information, didn't have the coaches, or why was that reason?
Okay, so now I had some pretty good coaches. One of the trainers I had lost to Marvin Hagel twice in the amateurs. So he was pretty good. Yeah, he was good. He almost beat him the first time. And then the other guy trained Johnny Ruiz, which was the heavyweight champion from Chelsea, which is down the street. So I had some pretty good trainers, but they insisted that it would make you too tight and muscle bound. So they wouldn't even let me do push-ups. Yet I walked around like this,
Really?
Hunched over. But when I came back, in my own gym, the whole back room is full of weights. So I try to implement it now. I think it only makes sense to have it done.
Well, something, it reminds me of what you're saying. When I went to spring training, do you remember the guys, they call them the Bash Brothers, Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco?
Yeah.
Do you remember those guys?
Yeah.
Well, when I went to spring training back then, I can't tell you what year it was, but this is how far back it was. They didn't want the baseball players lifting weights because of the same reason that you just gave me about making them tight and bulky and slow.
Yeah.
And of course, those guys at that time, they were doing that. And, they went out and they hit a bunch of home runs, and they actually revolutionized in some way baseball, because now, in baseball now everybody's training. But the difference was, and I think that, in some ways it's probably better that, unless you have the exact and the right kind of information, it's better that you didn't do any weightlifting, because you possibly could train because boxing, you'll tell me, boxing is a sport. Not only should you be strong, but I think you should probably be more explosive, being very quick.
Yeah.
And if you don't train for quickness, you could mess up. They were concerned about messing up their swing if they were weightlifting, which would have been right if they only trained for strength. Of course, now, fast forward, and everybody should be weightlifting as long as it's very sport specific. So let me ask you this: with the athletes that are training with weights in your place, is it sport specific or is it more general, would you say?
Okay, so there's two answers to that question. The ones who don't listen to me do what they want. The ones who do listen to me use your manual, actually, the explosive, the one you wrote with Tom Missoula.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. Yeah.
I use that one.
Very good, because that applies, definitely. And see, you get it. You understand that. And yet so many people, like the ones that you're talking about, the people that think they know, they
Right.
actually do more harm than good. But what are you going to do? They have to be on board when they're doing this, especially with a coach like yourself. All you can do is point them in the right direction, and at some point they have to be a participant. I get that, because being in this business that I'm in, it's the same way. Sometimes I have to sit people down and say, look, if I'm telling you that this is exactly what you need to do to get the result that you want, why wouldn't you want to do that? Because if you don't, then we're on different paths, and that's okay too. Just know that possibly you might be compromising your overall benefit. What else can you do as a coach?
I'm looking for that answer, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be on board. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Okay, so I have some. The other thing that was really wow that I didn't know. I'm looking at this. Two-time boxing champion, but here's a story that gets pretty amazing about you overcoming redemption and overcoming adversity. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so I wrote a book called Overcoming Adversity. Fighting Through It. I wrote a book called Fighting Through It. And I'm a pretty goal-oriented type of fella. And I sat down one day, and I was at my friend's house, and he had this seminar going on in his basement. And anyways, I set like 30, 40 goals, and one of them was to write a book. And then so I sat down and just, what can I think about? And then I started to come up with these stories that I was giving to my wife, and then I came up with some pretty good examples in my life that were could have been they were life changing, but like detrimental to my outcome if I didn't have people like you in my life, to be honest with you. I mean, you didn't even notice. You were in California or whatever, and I'm at home in Burlington, and like I'm struggling through stuff, but your manual helped me to be dedicated and disciplined towards other things. And that's how you overcome adversities in life. So I sat down and I wrote the book, and I had a question. My wife had a question because she co-wrote it, and she was asking me a question. I go, well, I got to go back to the book. So I went back to the book. See, I wrote the book in 60 days, basically, is what happened. I did it day and night and day. Me and her did it, and then so after the 60 days, we're rewriting things. She asked me a question. I said, I have to go back to the book and figure this out. And I went back to the book, and it said how to write a book in 90 days. So I shortchanged myself a little bit. So I could have made it a little bit longer, but I wrote it in 60 days. So, but I had to get it done.
Yeah.
I know the answer to the question. I'm not sure which question I answered though.
Well, I just I'm really interested. Yeah.
Those were the things that came to my mind. Like I have outlined a training book so far. I have, and if you read the subtitle of my book, it's how to overcome questionable parenting, I changed that word. Divorce and what's the other one? I don't know. Sexual abuse. Oh, sexual abuse. Isn't that the funny how I can forget that one? But so I talked to you about my wife, but she's sitting here, the same one that divorced me.
Oh,
But the same woman that divorced me is sitting right with me because we got married again. So I talked about how we overcame that, and I talked about So I just wanted to write about what I knew, and I knew how to make my marriage work again, or I thought I did, and I knew how to, become a great father myself. But just by learning and reading and studying. How did I learn from you, Leo? I learned from books. I did call you occasionally, but I sat with you on the phone. I learned from you. I found someone that knew more than I did, that knew a ton more than I did. And I just went and I just asked them for information. So my wife and I got remarried. I'm a pretty good father. The sexual abuse thing that I experienced as a kid was from my brother's trainer. Remember I said I trained younger when I was a kid. So I went to the gym when I was younger. He actually molested me at my house. So it wasn't at the gym, but anyways. So I never told anybody that, by the way. I revealed that to you. So I didn't even say it in the book, I don't think. But so when Mr. Evil abused me, everything fell apart. My brother went into the Marines, and then when he came back, I went to the gym with him because Mr. Evil should have been dead by then, but he wasn't. But anyway, so I just fought through that, got through all that, and I'm conditioned to be a champion, so I'm going to be a champion.
Well, something, the thing is, it's amazing to me. I'm lucky enough to be able to do these podcasts, and I learn a lot of stuff, and one thing that we know for sure is that life's going to test you. It's going to kick your ass. And, we've all got our story, and it's horrible. Some of the stuff that ends up happening to us, and obviously I interviewed, you remember Tony Pearson, that bodybuilder, Tony Pearson?
Yeah.
He was a famous champion back in the 80s, and he had a story similar to what you're talking about. And, you could have easily gone down the wrong road, but you didn't. And I'm really curious to know, I mean, the fact that you got sexually abused at a young age, how do you put yourself, I mean, I want to address some of these other things too, but I want to address that one first. How do you put yourself on the right track? Did you have a mentor, or I know you have a strong mindset, but how did you not go down that wrong path after that?
I got to say that it's, sorry, I just started crying.
That's all right. Don't worry about that.
I always knew, Leo, that I always believed that God was calling me. God was talking to me in my head. You know what I mean? I always knew that. I always believed there was something bigger than me, and that, and like, even though I was molested, it could have been worse. You follow me? So I've always just thought that God was there right beside me, getting me through things like that, because it could have been a lot worse. And it wasn't. It just could have been a lot worse. I could have ended up dead. I could have, you know what I'm saying? And I just always believed that God was right there by my side, getting me through it.
Well, you've heard that saying, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. And I think that's a really classic example, and I commend you for that. Now, when it comes to overcoming bad parenting, was this something like, my parents divorced when I was young. I was 5 years of age. And to be honest with you, look, at the end of the day, I've forgiven my parents, and everything is good. I'm not complaining about it. It's just that, they did the best that they could at that time, is kind of how I looked at that, because I thought they did some harmful stuff to the kids, and that kind of trauma lasts with you for a long time. And it did in my life. It took me in some cases to get it all off my back, until I was 40 years old, that's how much it can. So when you're overcoming bad parenting, was it something that you would think that happened maybe earlier on in your life that you learned from your parents? Or, I mean, how did you become a bad parent? Let's just say it that way. Because it sounds like you are.
How do I overcome a bad parent? Because hopefully I'm not a bad parent. I'm a great parent.
Okay. But you said, you're referring to yourself, right? Bad parenting? Is it just mistakes that you were making? Or
no, mistakes that were made.
Okay.
For instance, like my mother, I love my mother, don't get me wrong. My mother's a wonderful, beautiful person, My mother had 7 brothers, Leo, and they all died at birth. Her parents.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was crazy. My mother went through a lot of stuff, but she was the 8th child, and she was a female, obviously. So my mother went through a lot of stuff. I don't really hold my mother responsible for anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she, like you said, she did what she knew, but I did what I knew, but I learned more. I learned better. I studied. I watched.
Gotcha.
I researched. I wanted to become better. Just like serious growth. I wanted to be better. I didn't want to go on drugs ever. You follow me? I didn't want to spend my life on drugs. I had to find out what it was that helped me get through tough times in my life. My mother went through tough times herself. My father wasn't an angel. My father was a tough guy. I love my dad, but he's dead. I mean, but my mother had her own tough time. So, you know what I mean? How can I jam her up for having a tough time? She did the best she could at 6 kids. Like you said, your parents did the best they could. I needed to do better. I needed to do better because I wanted to have better results.
Well, and here's what you did based on, because you and I have something in common. We have parents that they did the best they could, you know, and at the end of the day, when it's all, both my parents are gone now, and we ended up on very good terms and very close to each other, you know. But here's what you did, and here's what I did too. And I think, well, I'm being a shrink now a little bit. What you did is like what I did. I became proactive about the things that happened to me because I didn't want to be a victim. You know, I just didn't want to take that side. I wanted to be somebody who was proactive and do something about it. And you know something, I apply those very same tools and skills in my daily life because, you know, you run a business, I'm in a business, and we're always faced with obstacles, you know, and you can either focus on the obstacle or you can focus on the solution. And obviously what you did is start focusing, you know, you address it's not like you run away from the problem. It's just that you don't lie there and be obsessed with it.
Right.
And you go into
you deal with your problems. I mean, they come and get me at certain times, certain moments in my life. They still come back and knock on my door and say, "Hey, don't forget about me." But they aren't who I am. I'm not a sexually abused young man. I'm a warrior.
There you go.
I'm a husband. I'm a father. No one gets near my kids. I you know, my kids are smart. You know, I taught them what to look for. You know what I mean? It's just living and learning. You know, it's just living. You're right. You know,
that's just life, man. That's for sure. Okay, so how long have you been teaching kids that are boxers, and do you have a certain group of kids that you teach, or is it just anybody that wants to be involved in boxing?
So I got involved in boxing because my wife told me to train my son. So I went to the local gym that I was in, and I said, "Hey, buddy, can we use one of these racquetball rooms for a boxing gym?" And he said, "I'm selling my gym to a guy. Don't tell anybody, yada yada." Within like 2 months, boom, I had the vision, Leo. This is what people got to know. I had the vision. I had the vision of what type of father I wanted to be. I had the vision of what type of husband I want to be. And I had the vision of what type of gym I want to create. So I went out and it just came to me. I went to the gym owner and said, "I want to put a gym in here, if you don't mind." And he goes, "I'm selling it." The guy who came in put a gym in for me. That was 7 years ago. My son's been fighting ever since. So we moved out. He lost that gym. I moved to another gym. My lease ran out, and now I'm here. So it's just been getting bigger and better and bigger and better.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how, because that's happened to me too, how just all of a sudden you have this clarity and you know, it's kind of, I remember having that intuition, you know, like when you know something's right and you know something's wrong. The hard thing to do is trust your intuition sometimes, you know. But I totally get what you're saying because that happened to me. I just there was no question in my mind. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with this, and that's what you did. You had you have this total vision, and even to the point where you even if one closes down, you just move on and you just keep on moving because of that vision, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. So then, is there, like, again, back to my question, is there a certain target market that you're because of what you've gone through? Is there somebody specific that you're drawn to, or?
I've trained probably 200 kids. I only have maybe 12 or something in my academy, my Fallon Boxing Academy. I have 12. I implement aspects of my experience into my training, but it's not announced. I mean, I don't like say, hey, we're learning this because of that. Because this happened to me as a kid. I'm not even sure I'm not even sure my son knows what happened to me, to tell you the truth. So I don't really broadcast that along. It's not really out there. It is now, but I mean, it's not really out there. What I've been through, But so kids is I basically train kids. I train people who think they want to fight, and I train fighters also. So and then I just kind of so I do train a lot of different people. And truthfully, I guess I train a lot of people because I train women who are never going to box. I train men who are never going to box, but they spar in the ring over here. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's really, most people honestly come in and they say, I just want to hit a bag. And then 2 weeks later, they're in the ring with me. You know what I mean? They're in the box with me. That's pretty much how it is. It gets contagious.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. You say you have 200 people. Now, do you have other... Okay, more than that. But do you have other trainers that are helping you? Or are you like one horse pony? You have all those people that are your clients?
I have a few people to help me. Yes, I have. Most of them are. I have 3 guys that I really depend on. 2 of them I trained from start to today, and the other one I trained after. He got all this, like I think he's a 2nd degree Taekwondo. So he's had other training, but I clean up his boxing for him. And the other 2 guys that I have work with me are specifically Tom Fallon fighters.
Gotcha.
They're known by the way they fight. It's how they throw punches, how they work. My fighters work a certain way.
So when they get to you, sounds to me like maybe they're a little more specialized then at that point, or am I reading this wrong?
No, I get them, but I make them special. That's the thing. I get them, and they leave. Well, hopefully they don't leave, but they become specialized in what they do.
Gotcha.
Each person has its own ability, has their own body style, desire, wishes of how they execute things. That type of thing. So you kind of use their personality, their body type, their physical abilities, their experience. You gotta put all that together and make a calzone out of it.
Right. So then this reminds me a little bit of when I went traveling over to Eastern Europe. They have these big sports schools. And so like what I'm envisioning is, as far as like how you play a role in the overall scheme of things, because they end up with you, I get that. But like if you have all these people that are in your gym, are you sort of overseeing and overlooking that and saying maybe at some point I want that guy or that girl, or if they have potential and let's bring them forward? How does that all factor into the 200 plus clients that you have, or fighters that you have?
Fighters I've had over time. That's a good point. Okay, so my son Clay, they got a 5-time champion training them. I mean, there's nothing. You can't be a much better amateur boxer than my son Clay. So his style is different. So I don't train everybody. We do talk about people behind their back about, hey, this guy's doing pretty good at this. Why don't you work on this? Or I basically, like you say, walk around the gym, listen to what's going on. Yeah. I work on my own clients mostly. If there's someone who's really gearing up for a fight or something, I do get more involved. I try to teach them how to train right from the very beginning, like phase 1,
right.
And then or phase 2. We have it built in phases and that type of thing. I hope that answered the question. I think it did.
No, it does. It does. I'm trying to get a sense and maybe help our viewers understand, like, how there's always a process. Right. Like when you come to my...
Everything has a process, exactly.
Yeah. So when you come to my studio, for example, we have a process, that people go through. Right. One of the things, I don't know if you've, I like your dog, by the way. I just saw it walk in.
Her name's Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray?
Sugar Ray.
I have a dog named Sadie Hawkins. You might appreciate that. Not everybody knows about Sadie Hawkins. Not at our age. I said that to somebody one day, that I had a dog in my office and they say, oh, what's this? Is a young person like in their 20s, and say, oh, they always make a big deal out of my dog. What's the dog's name? I said, Sadie Hawkins. I think it's funny. And they didn't know what the hell I meant. They said, what do you mean, Sadie Hawkins? You don't know that? No, it's a backward dance now. Oh, I see. It's aged myself big time. Anyway, I like your dog. So back to the process with you. Now, here's what I've experienced over the years, because you're a trainer, I'm a trainer. And of course, what I do in here has nothing to do with boxing, although I've trained people for that sport. But my thing has been more when people come to me, it's like, hey, I want to compete. And here's one of the things I've learned over the years. I've been doing this now for 38 years. And of course, when you've been around this long, you see just about everything, and yet you still learn new stuff, which I'm happy that still happens. I don't want to ever get to a point where I've learned it all. I don't want that to happen, to be honest with you. But here's what I'm frustrated with now, and I guess I'm getting more cranky as I get older. My patience sometimes are not what they were. But when people come to me and they want to compete, I try to make it quite clear to them and say, look, you might be that person that likes the idea more of competing than the actual process that you're going to have to go through to get up on stage. Now, is that something that you deal with, fighters that want to come in? Because something, Tom, here's the thing. When you're playing at a high level, whatever that is, even high amateur or pro, you just don't get there. The reality sometimes doesn't match up to the fantasy, if you will, of someday being up in that ring or on that stage. And that's a real frustration for me with a lot of the people that come through, because they once they get in, it's like, holy crap. It's like kind of like, if I'm going to use a terrible analogy, maybe it's kind of like when you first have a girlfriend or you first get married, that honeymoon phase, but then when it gets real, it's like, holy crap, man, I got to like diet all the time, for a show. Do you ever have to deal with that in your line of work with your boxers?
Yes. I think it's probably most of them think they want to do a certain thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of them, I personally, Leo, want everyone to fight personally, because I know how it's transformed my life. I fought in a prison at 16 years old.
Really?
Nobody named Ivan scares me. You know what I'm saying? They scared me then, they scare me now. I can literally fight anybody. It doesn't matter. Because I faced a guy that I thought was going to kill me. So,
well, that puts it all into perspective now, doesn't it?
What's that? I'm sorry, I missed you. What?
I said that puts it all into perspective now, doesn't it?
It sure does. I mean, I told my brother, "Hey, tell Mom I love her." He's like, "What are you talking about?" Remember Ivan Putski? Do you remember Ivan Putski, the wrestler?
Yeah, I do.
Horsepower.
Yeah.
That's why I call him Ivan. I'm like, this guy is gonna murder me.
Yeah.
And my brother said, "This is how I think about life too, Leo." I'm not sure. It's about the boxing. He goes back to boxing. My brother said, "Hey," they call me Ozzy. Ozzy. I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Didn't I teach you how to box?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Why don't you go try it?" And I said, "Come on, man." I go, "Look at him." And he goes, I see him. I see him. He goes, "He's right there. I see him." He goes, "But why don't you just try it?" I said, "All right." So I went out and tried it, and I ended up stopping the dude in the second round. So it was pretty good. But I'm sorry. Please go back to what was the rest of your question about?
No, I was just talking about how
about people. So yeah, a lot of people come in and just say, "I want to fight. I want to fight." So I kind of use that to train them, and they basically weed themselves out.
Yeah. I tell you what I do now is I just say, look, this is what's happened over the years, and here's what it's going to take for you to get on stage. Now, this is bodybuilding, not for boxing, but this is what it's going to take. You really have to think about that before I'm going to make a commitment to you, because I know stuff that you don't know yet because you haven't gone through this process. And I'd rather end this right here. That doesn't mean that you can't be in the gym and in my training studio, but it takes a certain commitment. And I try to read that process out because it's really frustrating. I mean, I've even had athletes that I've worked with that they backed out like a month before. And it's like, damn, man, you put all this time in, and I mean, I'm happy to do that, but I like more of a commitment, and I've always stood for that with my clientele. I've never had a clientele deficit, and I think it's because of what I stood for, and people know that, and you get a certain amount of people that are attracted to that, and I've always had a clientele, even like that through ups and downs. Are you guys dealing with much of this coronavirus where you're at?
Yeah, my gym's usually full right now.
Yeah, and yeah. So I don't know. Even through all this, I've been lucky because I have a studio. So the gyms in the area are being closed, but because I'm a studio and it's by appointment only, and I do stroke rehab, I've been able to stay open, to be honest with you. So I've been really lucky. But even but still, so it's like some of these the people, they just really don't understand the dedication and the discipline. I think part of what you're actually doing for a lot. What's your age group in there? How young are your kids that come through?
Occasionally there's a good 8-year-older, but it's generally 10 10 on up.
10. And what's your oldest fighter?
72.
Nice.
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah. So one of the things, because you're passing your knowledge and your experience and your background, the things that's happened to you, you're passing that forward, very much like I am. Because after being in the sport of bodybuilding, and all of a sudden I'm out, then I ask myself, I keep asking myself questions because I want to keep evolving, no matter what age that it is. And I'm almost 65. I'll be 65 in May, and I asked myself not too long ago, that's why I started podcasting. It's like, what is it? Because I still have love for the game. And I'm sure you do, because you're still doing what you've done for a lot of years, And I keep asking myself, how am I relevant? What can I bring to the sport to make it keep going forward, evolving? And it's my knowledge. It's the stuff that I know. It's stuff that I've learned from firsthand. And I think that's what you're doing too. You're actually, and maybe you're aware of this, you're inspiring, and you're going to be a mentor to a percentage of people that come through your program, because it sounds to me like, to some degree, they're going to have to learn discipline. And I don't know, do you have like a certain amount of time that you are asking to come in, or you just say, look, you can come in as many times as you want, or I need you to be here so many days a week? How does that work in your gym?
It works. It works like that. So there's the Kid Academy. I call it the Academy is 3 days a week.
Okay.
But the ones that are more serious, they come in more often. I am actually in the gym every single day. It's just that Friday nights, I've learned from my mistakes. I take my wife on a date every Friday night.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I'm not in the gym Friday night, but I'm in the gym every other day. So
yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity for people to come in, depending upon their memberships. You know what I mean? So
how do you market your services? Is it word of mouth mainly, or is it external marketing?
It's what? Okay, so I use some of the media like Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Mostly I pray.
Nice.
Yeah,
and I looked at, if you have that many fighters, you must be doing something right.
Well, thank you.
Would you say that? I mean, it just doesn't. I
am always learning, so that's the key. I'm always trying to figure out some new way to do it.
Okay, so go ahead, finish.
Well, I was just going to point out, you can't see it out there, but I have like a tent sign out in the street that brings me, a tent sign.
Yeah.
Out in the street. It brings me a lot of activity. I'm right across from a Taco Bell. I've only eaten there once in a year. Once my wife.
How was it?
It was pretty good. I haven't had a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken in a long time. It was great.
Yeah.
And there's a hair salon, a barber shop, a really good barber shop right next door. There's a dance studio a couple doors down. I got a couple of people out of that. Word of mouth is pretty much it. I really just try to be authentic. I try to be consistent, and I just try to communicate my love. Leo, I knew you loved bodybuilding. What you did just when I read your first few pages. Yeah. I knew that you were the guy that I was going to listen to for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Something? And that's one of your main keys as far as I'm concerned, because that's the reason why I've never had a deficit problem. Listen, when you've been around it for 38 years, you're going to go through stuff. There's been economic downturn in the years that I've been into the business. I went through a bad divorce, and some things happened because of that. But you know what? I've always been, I have this saying that I learned from my dad: when the dust settles, I'll be standing. It's just a powerful metaphor for me, if that's a metaphor. But here's one of the things that I've always tried to communicate to my clientele. They know, first of all, when they come see me, because I learned this stuff firsthand, I'm going to communicate to them that I know what I'm talking about without being like a smart aleck about it. Because it's important for me that they know that, because I want them to make sure they feel like they're in the right hands, because I know how intimidating it can be just to step through that door. Because you know what? It was intimidating for me to step through Gold's Gym when I did my photo shoot with Platts. Let me tell you, it was scary because all the pros were there. So it was important for me to, and it still is, for me to communicate to that clientele that I know everything that about the three components, which is what I'm dealing with: weight training, cardio, nutrition. And your results are just as important to me as they are to you. And that's not something that I take lightly, Tom, because what happens a lot of time with people who aren't disciplined and you really don't have the right kind of love for their game — your game is boxing, a part of it — is that too many trainers over the years, and I've dealt with a lot of them, they start what I call phoning in their workouts, just mailing it in. It just becomes very routine. Listen, clients and people who you're training, they pick up on that. You may not think that. You may not think that a client knows that, but they do know that. It's like a salesman that doesn't really believe in their product. Right. And you won't have a clientele, and I've seen it over the years. In my business, in my industry, most trainers, believe it or not, 95% of the trainers and the people that get into the gym business fail. 95%. That's a legit stat. And the reason for that is because of the things I'm telling you. Because what you said is huge. You tried to be authentic. That's huge. People are going to be attracted to that. Yeah, I hope you know that, because that's part of your, and maybe even a big part of your success. Because, I mean, like I said, you don't have 200 clients, and don't get me wrong, just because you hang a shingle or because you pray, I'm saying that that's not important. It's a heck of a lot more than that, That's what I'm getting out of this conversation right now.
Sure.
So how many, then, your Tom Fallon fighters, how many people do you have in that group then?
It changes. There's like a seasonality type of thing, like the Golden Glove season, and that pretty much dries up. And then, so I'm getting ready to gear up now. I probably only have 4 or 5 guys in the gym right now that are really looking to get going. And I still get cold calls every day with the virus going on and stuff, asking me if I'm open and when I'll be open and stuff like that. But it's kind of seasonal, believe it or not. I mean, so it's kind of seasonal. Right now we're like in a little bit of a in-between. We're in between the Golden Gloves and the New Englands.
Gotcha.
There's a tournament coming up.
Okay, so if I'm one of your fighters, now put me in. I'm one of your guys, okay? Right. That we're gonna go fight somewhere. Now, do you take me all the way to the ring? Are you actually in my corner? How do you participate then at that point?
So what I would do for you is, so there can be 3 guys in a corner, just so you know. There's the guy that's in the ring, and there's the second guy who's outside the ring, and then there's the third guy who stays on the floor. There's seldom a third guy, to be honest with you, but occasionally someone asks you enough times and all that, and you let him be in the corner. You let him be on the floor. But you guys all talk when the fight's going on. So basically, we all have our own responsibilities. The guy that steps in the ring, is the one that talks to the fighter, the ones that gives the instructions. Yeah. Usually when I'm the second guy outside the ring on the apron, we've already talked about what we saw. He watches the fighter. I watch the other guy. He watches our guy. I watch the other guy, which is better. It's better for me because I like to watch the other guy better. I'm more in tune with the other fighter than I am with my own. And when the fight's going on, because I like to see what they're doing and see what their strengths are and what we might be able to capitalize on. So we all talk, all three of us talk, and then he goes up and does his thing. I do he'll do the Vaseline, and I'll do the mouthpiece and all that stuff in the ice.
Gotcha.
Pretty much.
So is that the guy that's in the ring, is he also doing like the cuts and everything?
If we don't, well, in all my history of boxing and like all these years, I've only seen one amateur boxer get a cut.
Because you guys wear headgear.
Right, headgear. That's
Got it.
And headgears is not for concussions, by the way. It's for cutting. So he was in the Olympic trials, and they didn't have headgear, and he had like a cut, but it didn't come through all the way on his face.
Yeah.
So he was the only one. So yeah.
What's really interesting to me, because I played traditional sports mainly, except for when I got into bodybuilding, I did not know that there was that kind of like a relationship between the people that are in the ring. I didn't know. I just learned something brand new. Thank you, Tom. I love learning stuff, man. Seriously. But my question is this. Okay, so I'm assuming that when you go to fight, do you know? I assume that you know, obviously, who your competitor is going to be when you're going into a fight. Is that right?
Okay, so the thing I love about amateur boxing is that you never know. Sometimes you know. Sometimes you know.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
all right.
But New England's a small place. You know what I mean? Like, so there's, let's say there's 40 gyms in Massachusetts. But okay, here's the thing. My son Clayton, right? He's 180, 6'1", 17 years old. I don't know, maybe 8% body fat. He has maybe 13, 14 fights. You got to find somebody like that.
Right.
Because some dude with 4 fights ain't taking the fight with Clay. And some guy with 50 fights, I'm probably not taking the fight.
So how do you find those guys?
Right.
Do you go find them? Or is there somebody out there like
we can? Like I got a call one time from a guy who's I think his uncle was Rocky Marciano. He called me up and asked if my son Clay would fight his guy, and I said I'll ask him. He goes, Tom, but you got to know Clay's gonna lose. And I said, why? He goes, because I've trained this kid for 10 years, and I said he's gonna find this out now, but. He didn't know that Clay and I already boxed. Clay already boxed with this kid because this kid's name is Robbie. Robbie's mother was my wife's best friend's sister. Anyways, so we knew Robbie, and Clay already boxed with Robbie. And so I said, Clay, you want to box with Robbie? And he goes, sure. So we went and boxed. We went and fought Robbie and beat him. So we,
little did he know.
little did he know. But no, don't get me wrong. Robbie was a really good fighter, maybe even a better fighter than Clay. But he wasn't as technical as Clay was.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So he lost. Clay actually beat him, and then he beat him 2 weeks later. He beat him twice. He won 2 titles against this guy.
Okay, because the reason why I was asking that is, okay, so when you're going into...
Sometimes you know, Leo, and most of the time you don't.
Okay,
so
but when you
put it out, and then people show up.
Well, how do you develop a boxing strategy if you don't know who the hell you're going to be fighting? Do you have to develop a plan like in the ring? It sounds like that's what's going on, because like if you don't know about your fighter, like I said, I didn't realize the relationship that the job that each one of your people had. I find that really interesting that your job was to look at the strengths and weaknesses of that fighter. You weren't watching your own fighter. In this case, right?
Yeah, but the other guy was. But I think it's like this. If I come to you and say, hey, what do you think of my bicep, right? You're going to say, well, maybe you can't fix that space right there, or you'll notice my triceps are a little low or something like that. So I'll generally look at a fighter and say and evaluate his shadow boxing,
right?
And I'll see what he's doing, and then I'll and then I personally just go back in my mind and I'll see I'll look for my brother. I'll look for my brother in that guy. So if he's got my brother's style, my brother's body, I'll look and see what would my brother do in this situation.
Right.
How would he do that? And I'll look and say, what would Muhammad Ali do in this station? In this situation? How does Marvin Hagler handle this?
Right. So you're drawing, but it's fascinating to me because I find it really interesting because it almost, to me, obviously you're drawing on all your knowledge. There's no question about that. And you're doing it like in real time. When we go play a football game, we are, we're preparing, we have this tactic that we're using, we have a script that we're using going in, and then we modify on the fly. You're modifying on the fly virtually right when the damn fight starts, it sounds like.
During the fight, Elio.
During the fight, yeah, like with each round. You're modifying on the fly.
On the fly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's why I love boxing.
That's crazy. No, I mean that crazy in a really great way, because I find that really interesting. You have to know your stuff to be able to make those calls like immediately, and to have that translate to your fighter who can go out there and do it on the floor. Man, you're almost performing miracles.
That's good.
Oh, really? That's amazing to me.
I'm a miracle maker. I like that.
You are. That's really, I never knew this. In every one of my podcasts, I always learn something. There's a moment there. And this is the moment right now for me. I mean, I've loved this whole interview, but what you just told me is amazing for me. That really tells me that you know your stuff, to be able to do that in such a short period of time. You should bottle that up and write a book about that, as far as I'm concerned. That's amazing. Really.
Thank you. I will.
Anyway.
Yeah, you just when you talk to me, just like things just flying through my mind.
Yeah. No, you're just drawing on your experience. I mean, look, if you have somebody that's 15 years younger than you that doesn't have that experience, they can't do that.
No.
They can't unless they're Yeah, you got to put the time in. Anyway, so where do we go from here, Tom? What do you want to see yourself doing now? Are you going to continue training your fighters like you're doing? Is there some other goal that you have now going forward?
Other goal other than boxing?
Yeah, like where you're at right now. Is this where you want to be? Is there anything else that you want to do because you're strong-minded? Is there anything else that you think that, one day you're going to have all of a sudden this clarity and it's like you're going to go that direction? I'm just curious as to where you're at now.
Well, that's a wonderful, challenging question, Leo. Well, as a fighter, I want more titles for myself.
Okay.
And I'm in this for about 4 more years, as far as I can tell, because my son really wants to be an Olympian. He's too young for the Olympics this time around, but he'll be old enough for the Olympics. He'll be old enough for the Olympics next time, the Summer Olympics. I have a feeling, I haven't really talked to him about it, but I have a feeling he's going to probably hang around the Olympics for 2 years, for 2 terms. Like with Lomachenko, he's got 2 gold medals. I have a feeling my son's going to try to shoot for 2 gold medals. So I'm probably going to be in boxing for 8 more years.
What an amazing thing to be a part of, if you're actually able to be a part of that success of him. That would be so amazing to go through that. One of the things I've been really lucky is I've got 2 kids that went a long ways. One of my kids went and played pro baseball with the Royals, and my other kid played in Europe, football there. And I have to tell you something, those are the kinds of things that, will live on forever. And to be able to be a part of, your kids like that's pretty amazing. I think you're I don't know, man, I think you're in a really good spot as far as I'm concerned.
Appreciate
so is there anything that we're going to go ahead and start exiting out of the show? Is there anything that you would like to promote? Maybe your book, or is there a place where we can find your book, or anything you want to promote? Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Well, thank you. You can find my book on Amazon.
Okay.
It's a Kindle. You can get it on Kindle. You have, the book. It's on Amazon. It's called Fighting Through It, by Tom Fallon, co-written by my beautiful wife. I'm going to introduce you to her in a second.
I want to meet her.
Yeah, she's a wonderful girl. That's probably the best thing I've ever done is dedicate him, took the time to reestablish that relationship and all that. I'm sorry. I lost your question somewhere.
No, you're going in the right direction here. You're promoting your book on Amazon. Anything else you'd like to promote?
Well, you can look for. I'm in the process of finishing up a boxing book, like a beginner boxing book.
Okay.
I'm in the process of doing that. I'm probably going to contact you for the next one, so I can get. weightlifting routines and all that. I would love to
Nice.
have your name next to my name. Oh, my name next to your name. How's that?
Beautiful. Either way, whatever works for you.
Yeah. Hey, cool.
Let me meet your wife.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is. There's the rock. Hell yeah. There's the rock right there.
Yeah, that's my girl, man.
What's your name?
Kelly.
Kelly?
Yeah.
Kelly, nice meeting you, Kelly.
Good to meet you.
Hey,
So,
Tom.
just look for my name. I'm gonna try to do something greater in my life. You know, my son being Olympian will be a great thing. But I hope there's I think there's better. No, I think there's other things inside of me that I'm gonna make happen.
Oh, I'm sure there is. You know, some of those things just have to come at the right time. Listen, I really appreciate you you coming on the show. I loved getting to know more about you. One of these days, you know, when all this stuff that's going on in the world clears up a little bit, because I've mentioned this before, I'd like to come and maybe do some seminars or, you know, just something, collaborate. I think it'd be great fun. And if nothing else, and when your son's fighting for the gold medal, for goodness sake, oh, I almost said a bad word there. For goodness sake, have a seat next to you so I can be there to witness that, okay?
Well, you would sit next to my wife. I'll be up in their ring. Hopefully, I'll be up in there.
Better yet, I'd rather sit next to her. We'll watch it together.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Love you, man. Appreciate everything you've done.
I appreciate that comment. Thank you, Tom. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yeah, sure. See you
Bye-bye.
later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.